The list of people I had ever liked started in my freshman year of college, a simple notes file on my phone, titled very plainly, People I Liked. It sounds like a joke, or something childish that anyone would delete after a few months. But I didn't delete it. I kept it, updated it, and sometimes I go back and read it the way people open old photos at midnight. The first name on the list was a guy from my philosophy class, Lucas. I liked the way he smiled, a slightly crooked smile, as if he were hiding something. But I never talked to Lucas beyond a few polite exchanges. The second name was an upperclassman from the photography club, Ethan. He once showed me how to adjust the aperture, his hand touching mine very lightly, very briefly, but enough to keep me awake for 2 nights in a row. And the list kept growing longer. But none of those names were anything like Chavi. I met Chavi on an autumn morning, when golden leaves blanketed the campus walkways. It was the first day of Creative Writing 101. I arrived early and chose a seat by the window, a habit I had since high school. I liked natural light, liked the feeling of being able to look outside if the lecture dragged on too long. Chavi walked in late. The door opened, and I barely noticed until he apologized to the professor. His voice was low, slightly husky, as if he'd just woken up or had been rushing to get here. When I looked up, I understood why the name Chavi would never be deleted from my list. He wasn't the kind of person who stood out in the traditional sense. Not a hot guy that everyone turned to look at. But Chavi had something very real about him. Dark hair slightly disheveled, a simple gray hoodie, one headphone in his ear. His eyes, I remember them clearly, were a deep brown, deep enough to make you feel like you were being pulled in. He looked around the room, and then his gaze stopped at me. "Is anyone sitting here?" he asked. I shook my head, a little faster than necessary. "No." Chavi sat down beside me, set his backpack on the floor, then took out his headphone. No further greeting, no polite smile, just silence. But it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that was strangely easy. Throughout the class, I tried to focus on the lecture, but Chavi's presence beside me was completely distracting. Not because he did anything remarkable, just he was there, and I found myself noticing every small movement. The way he tapped his pen on the desk when he was thinking, the way he tilted his head when he read, the way he furrowed his brow when the professor said something unclear. At the end of class, the professor asked us to pair up for the first assignment, a short piece about the first memory that made you understand what it means to love. Before I could turn to ask anyone, Chavi said, "Want to work together?" I nodded. Again, faster than necessary. "Sure. Okay." He nodded lightly, as if it were obvious. "I'm Chavi. Neil." We shook hands, a brief handshake, but enough for me to notice his hand was warmer than I'd expected. "So, have you ever been in love?" Chavi asked, his voice as casual as if he were asking about the weather. That question made me freeze. Should I tell the truth? That I was gay? That every name on that list was a boy's? That I had liked so many people, but had never been liked back? I swallowed dryly. "I think, yeah." Chavi looked at me, eyes slightly narrowed, as if trying to read something on my face. "You think?" "I don't know what the definition of love is," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "but I've liked someone enough to not be able to stop thinking about them." A brief pause, then Chavi nodded. "Yeah, that sounds like love." I smiled slightly. "What about you?" He leaned back in his chair, eyes drifting up to the ceiling for a moment. "I used to think so, and then I realized, maybe I just liked the feeling of being near that person." His answer surprised me a little. "SNT that the same thing?" Chavi turned to look at me, his gaze clearer this time, more direct. "It's different," he said. "Liking someone is when they make you happy, but loving someone is when they can make you hurt." My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know if it was because of what he said, or because of the way he looked at me when he said it. After class that day, we walked out together. Leaves lay thick along the path, a light breeze carrying the scent of autumn, a scent that, later, whenever I recalled it, I always thought of Chavi. "Which dorm are you in?" Chavi asked. "Hall B. You?" "Hall C. We're close." "Yeah." We walked side by side for a while, not saying anything more. But I didn't feel uncomfortable. On the contrary, I felt like I didn't need to say anything at all. When we reached a fork in the path, Chavi stopped. See you tomorrow, Neil. Yeah. See you. He turned away, put his headphone back in, and disappeared into the crowd. I stood there a few more seconds, watching his back fade away. Then I opened my phone. The people I liked list. I scrolled to the bottom and added a new name, Chavi. I didn't know in that moment what I was beginning. Only that. For the first time, adding a name to the list no longer felt like a joke. It felt like a warning. My list had an unspoken rule. Every name came with a reason. Not the kind of reason like I liked him because he was handsome or because he was kind. Those reasons were too vague. I needed something more specific. A moment. A detail. Something small enough that others might overlook it. But to me became everything. Lucas, the crooked smile when arguing about Play-Doh. Ethan, the light touch of his hand when adjusting the lens. And Chavi. I stared at the blank space next to his name, my finger hovering over the screen. What was the reason? Deep brown eyes? Too cliché. Low voice? Not enough. Or, I don't know yet. I saved it and locked the screen. Maybe that was what made Chavi different. Not because I liked him more than the others, but because I didn't understand why I liked him at all. 3 days later, we met again in creative writing. Chavi was still late. This time, he didn't apologize. He simply walked in, sat down beside me, and slid a cup of coffee toward me. For you. I blinked. What? Coffee. I bought an extra. I looked at the cup, a latte, light on sugar. Exactly what I usually drank, though I never told him that. How did you know I drink this? Chavi shrugged. Just guessed. I didn't believe it was a guess. But I didn't ask further. Thank you. Sure. He took out his laptop and opened our assignment file. I wrote a bit already. Want to look? I nodded, pulling my chair a little closer to see his screen. Our shoulders were almost touching. I could feel the warmth coming off him, and it was more distracting than anything from the last time. Chavi's writing wasn't what I expected. It wasn't polished or elaborate. But every sentence was very real, very raw, as if he hadn't tried to make it beautiful, but simply wrote down what he felt. I once thought I loved someone, he had written, but maybe I just liked the way that person made me forget who I was. I read that line twice. This, I said softly. It's good. Chavi tilted his head. Good how? I don't know, I admitted. It makes me feel a little unsettled. He smiled lightly. Good. That means it's working. I turned to look at him. Who did you write this about? A moment of silence. Someone from before, Chavi said, his voice even. Doesn't matter. I nodded, but felt something strange stir in me, not quite jealousy, not quite curiosity. I didn't like the idea of him having had someone, which was absurd. I had an entire list of people I liked, but just the thought of Chavi looking at someone the way he looked at me made me uneasy. After class, we decided to go to the library to finish the assignment. The library was quiet in the afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the large glass windows, casting long beams across the floor. We chose a table in the corner where a few people passed. You write, Chavi said, pushing the laptop toward me. Your part. I took a slow breath and began to type. I don't have a clear memory of the first time I fell for someone. I wrote, but I have a list of people I've liked. And every name on it is a version of me at different points in time. I paused and glanced over at Chavi. He was looking at me, not at the screen. At me. What? I asked, a little flustered. Nothing, he said, but he didn't look away. It's just, I've never thought of anyone keeping a list like that. I know. It sounds a little strange. No, Chavi shook his head. It sounds honest. I didn't know how to respond. Because honest wasn't a word people usually used to describe me. I always kept so much hidden, especially the fact that I liked boys. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want things to get complicated. But with Chavi, I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep hiding. In that list. Chavi spoke up, pulling me out of my thoughts. How many people? I smiled lightly. Are you asking for the number?
Yeah.
I haven't counted. Roughly. I thought for a moment. Somewhere in the teens. Chavi let out a soft whistle. Wow. It's not what you're thinking, I said quickly. I've never actually been with anyone. He raised his eyebrows. Never?
Yeah.
Never dated anyone? Never. Never kissed anyone? I froze. Never. A pause. Then Chavi leaned back in his chair, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Interesting. Why? Because you don't seem like the type. Who's never done those things? I let out a short laugh. What type do I seem like then? Chavi didn't answer right away. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, like someone who knows what they want. That stopped me cold. Because if there was one thing I was certain about, it was that I didn't know what I wanted. At least, not until I met Chavi. That night I opened the list again. The name Chavi was still there. Still no reason. I stared at the words I don't know yet for a long while. Then I started typing. Because he looks at me like he already knows everything I haven't said. I stopped. Deleted it. Typed again. Because I can never predict what he'll do next. Deleted. Finally I wrote, because he makes me want to be honest. I read it back. My heart beating a little faster. Then I locked the screen. I wasn't sure when it happened. But this list was no longer about people I'd once liked. It was slowly becoming a story. And Chavi. He wasn't just a name on it. He was rewriting the whole list. There was one thing I'd never told anyone. I didn't just keep a list of people I'd liked, I also rated them. That sounds terrible, I know. But it wasn't that kind of rating, not for looks or for how hot they were. I rated them based on how much they changed me. Lucas got a 6 out of 10 because he was the one who made me start noticing boys. Ethan got a 7 out of 10 because for the first time, I realized I could feel something just from a touch of a hand. The other names hovered somewhere between 4 and 8. I'd never given anyone a 9. And I'd certainly never considered giving anyone a 10. Until Chavi appeared. A week after we started working on the assignment together, Chavi texted me for the first time. He had my number because the professor had sent it to the group, so it wasn't anything remarkable. But when my screen lit up with a message from Chavi, my heart still beat a little faster than usual. Chavi, what are you doing? I stared at the message for about 10 seconds before replying. Me studying. You? The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Chavi, bored. I let out a quiet laugh. Me, then go do something. Chavi, like what? I thought for a moment. Me, go somewhere? Get something to drink? A pause. Then, Chavi, wanna head out? I'm downstairs at your dorm. I sat bolt upright. What? I ran to the window, and there he was, Chavi, standing outside, hands tucked into the pocket of his hoodie, head tilted up toward my building as if he already knew I would appear. When our eyes met, he gave a small wave. I don't remember how fast I changed my shirt and ran down. I only know that by the time I was standing in front of Chavi, I was still a little out of breath. You, I said. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Chavi shrugged. I texted you. I mean, before you got here. Then it wouldn't be a surprise. I didn't know what to say to that. Going? He asked. Where? Don't know. We'll figure it out. I should have said no. I had assignments to do. Deadlines. A perfectly reasonable list of reasons to stay. But I nodded. Sure. We walked off campus and through a few small streets until we reached a 24/7 diner, very American. With neon lights, red vinyl seats, and the faint smell of pancakes drifting through the air. We chose a table by the window. Do you do this a lot? I asked when the server poured our water. Do what? Just show up outside someone's dorm. Chavi smiled lightly. No, only with you. That answer made me go quiet for a second. Why? He shrugged. I don't know, I just figured. You wouldn't mind. I shook my head. I don't. See, we ordered. I got pancakes, Chavi got a burger. A very Chavi choice. Have you ever imagined yourself here? Chavi asked suddenly. Where? In college. In this city. Sitting in a place like this, close to midnight, with someone like me. I smiled. Someone like you, how? I don't know, he said. Just me. I thought about it for a moment. No, I admitted. I didn't picture myself here. So where did you picture yourself? Home. A small town. Living a very ordinary life. Chavi looked at me. That doesn't sound like you. I think so too. So what changed? I looked down at my glass, slowly turning the straw with my fingers. I got tired of pretending. Pretending what? I looked up and met his eyes. Pretending to be someone else. A silence. Chavi didn't ask further. He just nodded as if he understood. And that alone made me want to say more. I'm gay, I said, my voice low but clear. I didn't know why I said it. Maybe it was the night. Maybe it was the neon lights reflected in Chavi's eyes. Maybe it was the way he looked at me as if I didn't need to hide anything. Chavi didn't seem surprised. He just took a sip of water, then said, "Yeah, I figured." I blinked. You figured? The way you see things, he said. It's not the way of someone who is pretending. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or exposed. What about you? I asked, heart beginning to beat faster. Are you? Chavi didn't answer right away. He looked out the window, where cars passed in the night, their headlights stretching into long streaks of light. I don't like labels, he said at last. But? He turned to look at me. But if I had to choose, I think I'm drawn to people more than to any particular gender. My heart stopped for a second. And right now, Chavi added, his voice quiet but certain, there is someone I like. I swallowed. Oh, really? Yeah. Who? Chavi didn't answer. He just looked at me. Longer than usual. Long enough for me to start to understand. Long enough for my heart to beat so fast I couldn't pretend nothing was happening. I started, but I didn't know how to finish. Chavi smiled lightly, as if he could see the panic in my eyes. Relax, Neil, he said. I'm not about to do anything. Do what? Make you run. I laughed, even though my heart still hadn't settled. I don't scare that easily. Really? Yeah. Chavi tilted his head, a glimmer of something I couldn't name in his eyes. Good. That night, when I got back to my room, I opened the list again. The name Chavi was still there. The reason was still, because he makes me want to be honest. I scrolled down to the rating line. My finger hovered. Then I typed 9 out of 10. I stared at that number for a long moment, then added one more line. Dangerous. Because for the first time, I wasn't just liking someone. I was stepping into something I wasn't sure I could control. And if Chavi really did like me, then this list might not be a list anymore. It would become a story I couldn't stop. After the night at the diner, everything between me and Chavi didn't change right away. At least not on the surface. We still sat beside each other in class, still worked on assignments together, still texted ordinary things like, have you finished yet? Or do we have an early class tomorrow? But something had shifted, something very small, very hard to name, but enough that I noticed every time our eyes stayed on each other a beat too long. Before, I could pretend there was nothing there. Now, I wasn't so sure. One Friday afternoon, Chavi pulled me out of the library earlier than usual. Want to see a movie? He asked. Now? Yeah. There's a 5 o'clock showing. I have work to. Neil. He said my name and cut me off. Just one word. But it was enough to silence me. You need a break, Chavi said, his tone not a suggestion but a statement. I looked at him, then sighed. Fine. But if I fail this course, it's your fault. Chavi grinned. Deal. The theater wasn't crowded. We chose the middle row, slightly to the right, the perfect spot where no one would bother us. I couldn't even remember clearly what the film was about. It might have been a drama, might have been a rom-com, it didn't matter. Because most of the time I wasn't really watching. I was aware of Chavi. More specifically, of the distance between us. The seats weren't very wide. Our shoulders were nearly touching. His hand rested on the armrest very close to mine. Just one small movement. I swallowed and tried to focus on the screen. About 20 minutes in, there was a sad scene, the main character standing in the rain saying goodbye. The audience around us grew quieter. And then, I felt something. Chavi's fingers. Touching my hand. Not accidentally. Not brushing past. But resting there. Lightly. but clearly. My heart pounded so hard I was afraid he could hear it. I didn't pull my hand away. I didn't take his either. I just left it there, as if moving would make the moment disappear. Chavi didn't look at me. He was still watching the screen, as if nothing was happening. But his fingers remained, touching me, and in that moment I realized I wasn't thinking about the list anymore. Not about ratings. Not about dangerous. I was only thinking, I want this to last a little longer. After the film ended, we walked out in silence. Not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that is full of things unsaid. Was the film okay? I asked, trying to sound normal. Yeah, Chavi replied. It was all right. I don't remember much of it. Me neither. We looked at each other, then both laughed. Probably your fault, I said. My fault? Yeah. You distracted me. Chavi raised his eyebrows. Did I? Yeah. He stepped a little closer. Sorry about that. His voice was lower than usual. I shook my head. Don't be. A pause. Then Chavi asked, do you want to go somewhere else? I should have said no. I should have gone back to my room, opened my laptop, gotten back to work. But, yeah, I said, somewhere. We didn't go far. Just a small park near campus, with a few wooden benches and a stone-paved path winding around. The sky had begun to darken. The streetlights came on, casting a soft yellow glow over everything. We sat down on a bench. Neither of us spoke for the first few minutes. I could hear the sound of leaves rustling, distant traffic, and my own heartbeat. What are you thinking about? Chavi asked. I don't know, I said honestly. A lot of things. Like what? I turned to look at him. You. Chavi didn't smile. Didn't joke. He just looked at me. Yeah, he said. Same. The air between us felt dense. I didn't know what to do with that. No instructions. No list. No ratings. Just. Chavi. You said the other day. I began. That there was someone you liked. Yeah. Still? Chavi didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands, then back up at me. Yeah. Is it me? I didn't know why I was asking so directly. Maybe because I was tired of guessing. Or because I was afraid that if I didn't ask, I would never know. Chavi smiled lightly. What do you think? I'm not good at guessing. No, he shook his head. You are. You just don't want to believe it. My chest tightened. So, is it me? 1 second. 2 seconds. Then Chavi nodded. Yeah. No background music. No elaborate declaration. Just a single yeah. But enough to change everything. I took a slow breath. You know I'm gay, I said. Yeah. You know I've never. Yeah. So why do you still? Because I like you, Chavi cut in, his voice more certain than it had ever been. It's that simple. I had no answer for that. No logic. No reason. Just a feeling spreading through my chest, warm and a little frightening. What about you? Chavi asked. That question. I had been asking it of myself since the very first day. Since I'd added his name to the list. Since I'd written dangerous. Since I couldn't stop thinking about him. I looked at Chavi for a long time, then said, I think I'm more than like you. A silence. More than like, how do you mean? He asked, his voice quieter. I swallowed. Meaning, I'm scared of you. Chavi furrowed his brow. Scared? Yeah, I nodded. Because you could hurt me. He looked at me for a long time, then asked, so do you want to try? I smiled faintly, though my heart was racing. Are you asking me if I want to fall in love with you? Chavi shrugged. Something like that. I didn't answer right away, because I knew, if I said yes, everything would change. The list would no longer be a list. It would end. Or start over from the beginning. I looked down at my hands, then remembered the feeling in the theater. His fingers touching mine, lightly, but enough that I didn't want to pull away. I looked up, straight into Chavi's eyes. Yeah, I said, just one word, but this time, it was no longer a simple answer. It was a step forward, a step I couldn't take back. And when Chavi smiled, I knew my list had finally found a name I would never want to delete.